The server deftly topped her crystal flute with sparkling rosé, pointedly bypassing my empty glass. His gaze, a silent assessment, made me feel like an uninvited shadow. Her laughter, a bright melody, wove through the gentle clinking of silverware and the hushed cadence of the high-rise bistro's jazz ensemble. She hadn't acknowledged me yet, or perhaps she had and simply didn't care. I had arrived a full quarter hour early. Shaylin Larkin, 37, with her striking auburn hair styled in the loose, elegant waves I'd always admired, was already several drinks into her evening. She wore the charcoal silk dress she'd once sworn was reserved for our most special anniversaries, a promise now shattered by the glint in her eyes. And that smile, radiant, unrestrained, was one I hadn't witnessed directed at me in years. It was undeniably for the man seated opposite her. He, a man with sharp features and an easy confidence, leaned closer. I caught only fragmented whispers above the din. "So you're saying, if you could rewind the clock," and then her voice sharp and clear as a fragile bell cracking, "I'd never choose him again. Not now. Not with this clarity about what real joy feels like." No hesitation, no softening. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. My feet remained rooted to the polished floor, as if a sculptor had anchored me to the spot. The glittering tapestry of the city skyline shimmered behind her, an indifferent backdrop to my unraveling. In my hand I clutched the slim, unassuming box I'd brought, a collection of artisan chocolates, a card I'd spent a soul-searching hour composing, and the antique pocket watch she'd once coveted in a boutique window. I had dinner reservations for us at 8:30. This wasn't dinner. This was something far more final. I set the small box on the gleaming bar counter near the elevator bank, turned and retreated into the crisp night air without touching a single beverage. No outburst, no confrontation, just the stark echo of my own footsteps on the marble, louder, more insistent than her distant laughter. She didn't call that night. A part of me, the part that still clung to the ghost of hope, still registered the pang. When I returned to our apartment, Shaylin's meticulously organized wardrobe was in an unusual state of disarray. A pair of crimson stilettos, unworn for over a year, was conspicuously absent. On her vanity, a receipt from an unfamiliar, high-end boutique was dated for the very afternoon she'd claimed to be holed up, finalizing a crucial client proposal. I didn't sleep. I didn't weep. I just lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling fan, its lazy rotation a relentless countdown. Why does this specific detail twist the knife deepest? She didn't even bother with the lie anymore. She simply ceased pretending. I hadn't planned to revisit the Skyline Bistro to stir that painful memory, but sometimes a raw wound demands proof. My heart, it seemed, still needed confirmation that the words weren't a figment of my unraveling mind. So the following evening, at the identical hour, I returned. The same charcoal blazer, the same leather shoes, but no hopeful gift this time. Only a numb curiosity and a chilling resolve. The hostess, a poised woman in her late 20s, recognized me. Her polite smile faltered. "Are you looking for Shaylin, Mr. Lyons?" she asked softly, her gaze flicking past my shoulder. I didn't answer. My silence, I believe, spoke volumes. She hesitated, then reached beneath the counter, producing a small, sleek black envelope. "She left this. Said if you came back, I was to give it to you." My hands, despite my resolve, trembled as I accepted it. Back in the cold silence of my car, I tore it open before second-guessing myself. Inside, a folded receipt from the previous night, and a small, cream-colored sticky note bearing 3 chilling words. "You always knew." The receipt detailed 2 main courses, 2 craft cocktails, and a shared dessert. Paid in cash, signed not with her full name, but with an elegant, looping S. My chest constricted. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Ready to uncover the unsettling truth behind those 3 words, I don't recall how long I sat in that dimly lit parking garage, rereading the note. What did it mean? I always knew what? That she was unhappy? That she desired someone more boisterous, more thrilling? Or did she mean I always knew this outcome was inevitable, and simply refused to confront it. My thoughts spiraled for what felt like an eternity. When I finally reached our apartment, I walked past the elaborate, never-cooked dinner and into the bedroom we now barely shared. An unsettling quiet hung in the air. Her antique jewelry box, usually fastidiously organized, was slightly ajar. One of its velvet-lined drawers was pulled out halfway, revealing something that didn't belong. A silver ring. Not her engagement ring. Not any ring I'd ever seen her wear. A man's ring. It certainly wasn't mine. That night, I lay beside a woman who smelled of a perfume that wasn't her usual scent, dreaming of a marriage that had already dissolved. And as she slept soundly, I couldn't help but wonder, how many more secrets was she waiting for me to unearth, without ever having to utter a single word? The ring became a phantom weight. I stashed it in my sock drawer, buried beneath layers of forgotten relics, faded holiday cards, an expired passport, a half-filled journal. Every time I opened the drawer, even for something mundane, my fingers instinctively recoiled from the cold metal, as if it harbored a silent burn. Perhaps it already had. Shaylin behaved as if nothing was amiss. She pressed a soft kiss to my cheek that morning, sipping from her travel mug as if she hadn't uttered those devastating words, as if I hadn't found that incriminating token. And I let her. I nodded, even managed a tight smile, because I hadn't yet mustered the courage to be anything but quiet. That had always been my role, hadn't it? The steadfast presence, the calm anchor, the one she could depend on never to raise his voice, even as a silent scream tore through my insides. Around midday, an unknown number flashed on my phone. I almost let it divert to voicemail, but some primal instinct urged me to answer. Fate, perhaps, or a burgeoning paranoia. Either way, the voice on the other end would forever be etched in my memory. "Hello, is this Caden Lyons?" "Yes," I replied, my voice a wary murmur. "This might sound incredibly strange," she began. "My name is Leona Nash. I believe your wife is seeing my fiancé." I stopped breathing, my gaze fixed on the wall, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. She continued, "His name is Eamon Vance. I found messages between them, photos. One of the pictures had your name visible in the background, on a piece of mail on a counter. I looked you up. I'm so sorry, I had to say something." "Stop. Read this before moving on, because this is where the facade truly crumbles." I sank onto the edge of the couch, the air thick around me. I had harbored suspicions, yes, but hearing it articulated by a stranger with such stark certainty made it profoundly, terrifyingly real. I asked her to forward the evidence. She did. My phone screen quickly filled with a torrent of screenshots. All room for doubt evaporated. There they were, Shaylin and Eamon, inside jokes at my expense, memes, selfies. One, shockingly, of her in our bathroom mirror, wearing his shirt, another from our very porch, even one from the bistro. She'd even mockingly referred to me once as the cohabitant. The cohabitant. I didn't immediately cry. I simply stared at the images, each one a tiny chisel, chipping away at my memories of her. Our wedding day, the spontaneous road trips, even the quiet nights I'd made her soothing chamomile when she was ill. They all felt like hollow stage props now, belonging to some other happier couple. That evening, she came home late again, smelling faintly of peppermint gum. She offered a bright, unburdened smile, and again I remained silent. But something within me had already begun to fester. My next steps weren't about vengeance. I am not that kind of man. Nor was it, truthfully, about closure. I simply needed tangible clarity, something I could grasp, something that would make this entire nightmare feel less like a distorted dream. So I did what I swore I never would. I invaded her privacy. It began with her work laptop. Shaylin often left it charging on the antique buffet table in the dining room. She had always been notoriously careless with passwords, still using our college dog's name, Blaze 13, years after Blaze had passed. I waited until she announced she was meeting Nadia Thorne for drinks, knowing full well Nadia had relocated to Vancouver last month. The laptop hummed to life, as if eager to confess its secrets. I wasn't certain what I expected to uncover. Emails, perhaps a shared digital calendar. Instead, I found something far more insidious. A folder labeled Soundscapes. I opened it, assuming it was marketing material, audio clips for clients or social media campaigns. But then I saw the file names. Bedroom Mirror Munt.mp3, Thursday Drive, .4a, Hotel Laughter Eve.mp3. These weren't professional recordings. They were personal. She had been saving them. Their clandestine conversations, their shared laughter, intimate fragments of her hidden life. In 7 days, your entire perception of trust could shatter if you heard this. I pressed play on the first one, Bedroom Mirror '01. Her voice instantly filled the quiet room. "So, what would you do if Caden found out?" she asked, a playful lilt in her tone. Eamon's chuckle followed. "He won't. He never asks questions. It's like living with a phantom." Then her voice again, colder, sharper. "It's not even guilt anymore. Just monotony." I paused it. My stomach churned violently. I slammed the laptop shut and stared into the dark window, my own reflection hollow and rigid, like a stranger watching me drown. Monotony. That's what I had become. After years of quiet devotion, making her herbal tea when she was unwell, meticulously cleaning her car in the winter, folding her cashmere sweaters precisely the way she liked them, I had been relegated to background noise, a dull hum, a calendar reminder she simply ignored. She returned half an hour later, humming a light tune, as if she'd just stepped out of a charming rom-com. She pressed a kiss to my forehead. I didn't flinch, didn't move, because now I understood. Not just that she was emotionally absent, but that I had been erased from her world long before she ever physically walked out the door. I never imagined she'd notice that drawer. It was a small one in the side table beside my half of the bed, slightly warped, barely closing completely unless you knew its particular angle. But somehow, on a brisk Thursday morning, when she was supposedly rushing, she opened it and discovered the ring. The man's ring. The one I'd found weeks ago. The one I still hadn't confronted her about. I heard her slight intake of breath, that distinctive catch in her throat she made when surprised. And then silence. Not a single word. Just the soft, controlled slide of the drawer closing. Slower this time. That night she didn't mention it. Neither did I. But something subtly shifted. Her voice softened. She offered to prepare dinner. She even suggested a movie, curling up beside me on the sofa as if it were the blissful first year of our marriage again. And I let her. God help me, I let her. Because a desperate part of me wanted to believe it meant something. That maybe, just maybe, she felt something. Guilt, regret, anything remotely human. But it wasn't love. Later that night, as she stepped into the shower, I picked up her phone. It was unlocked as if she invited me to look, or perhaps dared me. A new message thread, barely hours old, illuminated the screen. Eamon again. Shaylin, he saw the ring. I think I left it by mistake. Eamon. Should we cool things for a bit? Shaylin. No, he won't say anything. He never does. Eamon. That's almost worse than if he yelled. Shaylin. Yeah, it's like sleeping beside a phantom. A phantom again. That word kept resurfacing like a cruel, mocking punchline. I don't know when I became invisible in her eyes, but now I understood. She wasn't merely cheating. She was actively rewriting the narrative of our shared life, twisting it into something she could ridicule in text messages and private recordings. I walked downstairs, brewed a cup of decaf, and sat in the dark kitchen until the shower stopped running. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just counted the tiles on the kitchen wall, like a man awaiting a verdict he already knew. And somewhere in that profound quiet, I decided I wouldn't leave just yet. Not until she knew I was watching. Not until I transformed into the one thing she never expected. Someone who could still disappear, but on his own terms. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning, just after she poured herself coffee into the ceramic mug I'd bought her 5 years ago. The one emblazoned with, "You make me want to stay." She used to cherish that mug. Now in her hands, it felt like a bitter jest. She was humming again, a light, airy tune, as if the soundtrack of her life had edited me out, playing a new carefree melody on an endless loop. I sat at the breakfast table, watching her swirl almond milk into her cup. She glanced up, offered a small, unburdened smile, and before I could second-guess myself, I asked, "Do you love him?" The spoon clinked against the ceramic once, a sharp punctuation mark, then silence. Her shoulders tensed before her expression shifted. Not shock, not guilt, but a flicker of annoyance, as if I'd rudely interrupted a pleasant dream. She didn't deny it. She didn't lie. She simply sat across from me, took a long, measured sip, and finally said, "I don't know what you want me to say, Caden. It's complicated." That word, complicated, a flimsy curtain draped over a gaping wound. "I found the messages," I stated, my voice steady. "The pictures? The recordings." Her face didn't shatter. No tears, no desperate apologies, just a deep, slow breath through her nose, as if I was utterly exhausting her, as if I were the true inconvenience. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, still too calm. "I thought you'd... I don't know." "Ignore it," I finished for her, the words tasting like ash. "Just ignore it." She looked away, idly tapping her polished nails on the tabletop. "You've been checked out for years. I needed something real." Real. The word was a cruel, absurd joke. I could have laughed, but it would have been hollow. I rose slowly, quietly. She didn't ask where I was going. I think she already knew. I walked upstairs, retrieved the worn duffel bag I hadn't touched since our cabin trip in 2021, and began mechanically folding shirts, as if preparing for an ordinary business trip. I didn't take everything, just enough to leave without a dramatic declaration. When I zipped the bag, I turned to find her standing in the doorway. Her arms were crossed, but her eyes held a soft sadness. Not for what she had done, but for the stark ease with which it had all unraveled. "I never hated you," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "but I never felt seen." That sentence settled on my chest like a stack of lead bricks. For years, I believed I was doing everything right, being kind, being quiet, never creating friction. I hadn't known she craved fireworks. I thought she sought peace. Now I realized she wanted both. And in her story, I had only ever been half a man. I didn't slam the door when I left. That would have been too dramatic for a man like me. No suitcase hurled into the trunk, no screeching tires tearing down the driveway. I simply pulled out, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, and drove. Nowhere specific, just away. I ended up at an aging roadside motel 40 minutes out of town, the kind with peeling paint, a faded neon sign, and a silence so profound it was almost deafening. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, waiting for some profound emotion to arrive. Grief, incandescent rage, anything. But I felt utterly hollow. I felt like the skeletal remains of a man who hadn't fought for his marriage because, deep down, he understood the war had concluded long ago. I powered off my phone that night. I couldn't stomach the possibility of her name flashing across the screen. But curiosity, as it turns out, is a relentless tormentor. The next morning, I switched it back on. There were 2 missed calls from Shaylin, but a single voicemail from someone else. It was Leona Nash, Eamon's former fiancée. "Caden," her voice began, soft but urgent. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me again, but I think you need to know something." Eamon didn't tell Shaylin the full truth. He's been seeing someone else, a third person. I confronted him, and he admitted it. I only found out because this girl messaged me. She thought I was the wife. My ears began to ring. "She said she thought your wife knew, that it was an open arrangement between them. I don't know what game he's playing, but I thought you deserved to know. I'm so sorry." I listened to the voicemail twice, then a third time. Each playback, the pieces rearranged themselves in my mind like a horrifying puzzle I never wanted to solve. So Eamon had been using Shaylin, much in the same way Shaylin had used me. This wasn't some grand romantic tragedy. No once-in-a-lifetime love story torn apart by cruel fate. Just intersecting layers of betrayal, an edifice of lies built upon lies. Shaylin hadn't just shattered our marriage. She had been played too. All that certainty in her voice, all that condescension. And she had no idea she was merely another placeholder in someone else's cynical game. That revelation should have brought vindication. But instead, one emotion overshadowed all others, a profound pity for her and for the naive version of myself who once believed this messy, broken thing was love. The house was quiet when I returned, quieter than I remembered. I half expected her to be gone, but her car was in the driveway. A soft light glowed in the kitchen. It felt profoundly strange, walking back into the space that had once been undeniably mine. Our wedding photos still adorned the walls, her favorite cardigan still draped over the dining chair. Yet it no longer felt like home. I hadn't come back to talk. I hadn't even returned to explain. I came to leave something behind. In my bag was a letter, handwritten, 4 pages long. I'd worked on it in the motel over 2 long nights, rewriting it twice until I felt I had articulated everything I needed to say. Not for closure, because I no longer needed hers, but because I knew if I didn't voice it my way, it would continue to gnaw at me. I placed it on the kitchen table beneath her favorite mug. It said everything. How I'd heard her, how I'd known, how I'd watched it all unfold before me, and still tried to love her through it. I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, but for my own, because I refused to carry her mistakes on my back any longer. She entered the kitchen just as I was walking out. Our eyes met, wordlessly. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what she might say. She looked as if she had a speech rehearsed, perhaps an apology, perhaps another excuse. But when she saw the duffel bag slung over my shoulder and the quiet calm etched on my face, she simply stepped aside, and I walked out for the very last time. 2 weeks later, I moved into a modest apartment nestled above a charming bookstore. The owner, Marcus Galloway, a 73-year-old with an encyclopedic knowledge of Civil War history, offers me free coffee and talks a little too much. But I don't mind. It's peaceful, honest. I've started journaling again, a habit I'd abandoned since college. I cook for myself now, simple meals. I've made a new ritual of watching the sunrise through the dusty kitchen window, a chipped mug warming my hands. No other sound but the quiet unfolding of a new day. Some mornings still carry an ache, certainly, but most days I feel remarkably lighter. Because I didn't beg, I didn't scream, I didn't destroy myself trying to be enough. I just listened, I saw the truth, and I left with my dignity finally intact.